Good morning, everyone. I see there are people still coming into the meeting, so I'll give it a few more minutes, about a minute or so, and then we'll start. Well, okay, it's 9:01, so I'll start it now. Good morning and hello, everyone, and welcome to the California Financing Coordinating Committee's Spring Funding Fair. My name is Saressa Hartwell, and I'm a program analyst with the State Water Resources Control Board and the Division of Financial Assistance. If you are here seeking funding for infrastructure, you have come to the right place because we have the opportunity to hear from many of the agencies who have financing available. In fact, let me give you an overview of today. Like I said, we have presentations. We're going to have agencies who have financial assistance to give their presentation on what they have, it's available, who's eligible, information like that. And then between the federal and the state and local agencies, we'll have a brief break and for to set up for the next group. And just before the virtual booths, we'll have a small evaluation. We want to see how well your experience was today, how you enjoyed it, what you liked, what you didn't like, what you want to change about it. So just before the virtual booths open up, we'll have the evaluations. And while you're taking the evaluations, we'll let the agencies go into their booths and get set up so they can welcome you. Speaking of virtual booths, this will be the opportunity for you to speak with program staff directly. When the booths open up, at the bottom of your screen would be these 4 boxes. You just press one of those, press that, and then you can go and join any of the room and talk to any of the state agencies. If you do not have it on full screen, there'll be a button called More. If you hit that button, then you'll see the breakout room list there. If you're on full screen, you'll see all 4 little boxes at the bottom. But before we start with the presentations, we like to take a small poll. We want to find out who's here, where you're coming from, what kind of information you're looking for. So let me stop sharing my screen and I will launch the poll. For you to take. And for those for the questions with other on it, if you can put in the chat what that who that other is for any of the questions that have other on it. I always get so nervous at first because I never see the answers come through once I launch and I don't see anything. There they are. We have a lot. We have some first timers here. Welcome to the funding fair. I hope you'll be one of our returns because every year we have different type of information that comes out that's available in different agencies that speak. So it's never dull. You're always welcome you to come back. And I'm really interested in the ones who chose how they heard about it through blog, news, release, or publication. In the chat, would you please let me know what blog, what news release, or what publication heard it from? Because I want to know who gave CFC some love, and I'd appreciate who did that for the blogs, news release, or publication. A lot of, a lot of construction here to hear about what kind of construction costs and implementation. I do like that, and outreach. We do have organizations here that can help you with outreach. And we do have some tribe and special districts here today. Oh, that's wonderful because we have all kind of information about for those particular communities. And yes, we have some underserved communities. We also have a lot of information for you too. Right now, Southern California is winning here, where everyone's located at. Normally, Northern California wins, but today Southern California is winning. I'm happy to see that. I noticed there are people who are still arriving in the waiting room, so I'll give them an opportunity to take the poll. We're taking a poll right now just to get a feel of who's here. We welcome you to the funding fair today. You have all type of information that's going to be available. I still see answers coming through. I always seem to end the poll too soon, and I just want to make sure everyone has the opportunity. I'll give it a few more seconds. I hope everyone's enjoying this weather. I know we always say, oh, let's talk about the weather, but today the weather has been just so nice. Well, I will end the poll now. I see there's no more answers coming through. It stopped going, so I'll end the poll right now. And I want to thank everyone who took the poll. This information is always helpful. Let me start sharing my screen. Again, thank you for taking the poll. We use this information to improve what you're looking for, because this is all about you guys, all about what today's content is located at the access to the agenda, the handbook, the presentations. They're all available at the CFCC website at www.cfcc.ca.gov, or you can scan the QR code. Later on, we'll put a link to, in the chat for the handbook in the agenda. This is what it will look like. So speaking of that, let me share a new screen here. This is where you'll come, the CFCC funding. This is our the CFCC's landing page for the funding fairs. And so if you hit over here at funding fairs, this is where you will see you can have access to the handbook, to the presentations. But also on this page, we have on the landing page, you will also have access to the handbook. The handbook has all type of information in it, a little bit about our mission statement, a little bit about ourselves. It also has presenters information about their funding programs. There's more information in the handbook than are in the presentations, so the handbook is a very good source. However, if you leave today and you forgot to ask a question, also there is under the inquiry line, we have a common funding inquiry form where you can fill out general information about who you are and what you're looking for. And then if you hit the button here to iBank, this form goes to them, and then they will distribute it amongst the members of CFCC to see if anyone can help you with your questions or what type of information you have. Also, over here is where the recordings will be. So just in case you want to come back and rehear something, the recordings will be at this under Funding Fair Video. And again, here's where you can hit the slide presentations for those who are presenting today. And we have some slide presentations from other agencies who may have not presented today, but their information is down at the bottom. Over here, under infrastructure funding programs, these are the agencies that have funding for those type of projects. A lot of these agencies are presenting today, so you'll hear about that during their presentation. Under additional funding programs, there are two buttons that I want you to concentrate on. This one is the California Grants Portal. This is where you find all kind of information about what's available here in California. And we are fortunate today to have a presenter from the state library who's going to give you an overview on how to navigate and use that portal. Another one is the Federal Grants Programs portal. If you hit that button and scroll down to the bottom, you'll see the Federal Grants portal, and this is what theirs will look like. And again, we are fortunate to have someone, a presenter here, to present how to navigate that. So this is what the CFCC website looks like. I highly recommend you to come and look at it, because we're always adding and subtracting from here so that we can keep it available and abreast for you guys to have the latest and the greatest. Okay, so there we go. So that was the CFC funding CFCC's website. So now it's time for the presenters. These are the ones, this is the reason why you came, to hear the presenters today talk about their funding. And so our very first speaker, as I said, is from the California State Library. They're going to give you an overview of the California Grants Portal, which is a very good resource. So let me stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Shivani.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. My name is Shivani Bosparella. I am the lead over California Grants Portal. Again, as Sasa mentioned, this is a California-based portal, which includes all state-administered grant opportunities on a competitive and first-come, first-serve, including loans and federal assistance funds. It is driven by a legislation, AB 2252, which asks state agencies to enter all competitive grant opportunities here once they are available for you to apply. So with that said, you go to grants.ca.gov, you will see the homepage. There are several ways for you to be able to find the grant opportunities you're looking for. Just remember, this is a high-level portal, meaning you can put a wide range of information and find everything that is available under that specific category or keyword search. So when you come to here, you can do is fill out the sentence that says I am, and you can select who you are. So business, individual, nonprofit, other legal entity, public agency includes local governments, special districts, K-12 and higher education, and then tribal government. So once you've selected who you are, you can select a category. And again, the categories are very wide ranged so that you can get all the results on this portal, including any of the categories that you mentioned. So if you mention agriculture or environment and water, which is where all the infrastructure planning grants for Department of Water Resources or other environment water related will be, you can select that. You can select multiple categories if you like, but to get a best result, just make sure that you're selecting the categories that you're really interested in looking for. Otherwise, it will just be a wide range of bunch of grant opportunities, and you'll have to go through to try to find a specific grant if you're looking for it. And then you can also select a time frame depending on when the application deadline will close for these grants. So if you're an organization who's unable to fill out an application for something that's closing in 2 weeks, you can kind of look at project ahead and see anything that's closing in 6 months, in 3 months, or 1 month, or 1 year even. Okay, and then once you've selected those filters, you can select show me the opportunities, and it'll filter to your selection here and show you only the grant opportunities that are available in those categories and filters. If you wanted to see everything that's on the grants portal, you can say show me everything, or go to find grants on the top, which I'll take you in a minute. On the bottom here, you can find grants by category. Again, it's a self-selected, you can select only the category you want to see, or you just want to see all grant opportunities available to businesses or nonprofits or public agencies or tribal government. Here are some recently posted grant opportunities by the state agencies. Again, this is updated periodically as the grant opportunities are available by the state agencies. And then currently we have 145 grant opportunities in the portal that are forecasted and active, meaning either they're projected to come out in the future or they're open for application. And this is the dollar amount that's currently available. And there were 3 grants in the past week that were added onto the grants portal, just to kind of give you a statistical numbers to show you how the grants portal is working currently. So let's go to find grants here, which is where I would recommend everyone starting if you are looking for advanced filters and just kind of keyword search, right? So when you get here, you have advanced filter here, which will default to forecasted active. Again, forecasted are not open for application. They are grants that are projected to come out in the future, just for your awareness, and they might have some workshops or technical assistance, events that you can attend to, but this is really for you to have it on your radar. Active are those that are open for application, are mandated by the legislation. Forecasted are not mandated by the legislation, so they are at the discretion of the department, and they will be added as department has an information available for those grants. For keyword search, my recommendation is to put something that is more of a policy and service based. So if you were to put infrastructure here, just to show you, and then I'm not going to select any other filters here. I'm going to leave all agencies. I'm going to leave all categories and all applicant types and all disbursement methods. And I'm going to apply a filter here. It's going to give me everything that is infrastructure related. So just to note, keyword only works on text. So if infrastructure is mentioned in the title or in any of the text of the grant opportunity, it will spit it out as a result. Okay, so if it's not mentioned in the text, you will not see any results. So if you were to come here and you're like, I put infrastructure, let's just say hypothetically, and you didn't see any results, that doesn't mean there are no grants. That could be that they're already closed. So you can always select closed here, apply filter, so you can see all the grants that have been related to that keyword search in the past, and maybe they will be coming back next year if the funding is available. So just to kind of give you a better sense of if there were any grants in the portal before in that keyword search. Let's say I'm actually going to just show you the forecasted active here. Let's say you are interested in this grant and you don't want to leave this results page yet, and you just want to see a little bit more about this grant because on the title it doesn't really tell you much about it. You can click on this more info right here, and it will give you a little bit more information about this grant. It tells you who's eligible for it, purpose, a little bit of a geographic, any limitation or exclusions. If you were to read more about this grant and you're like, you know what, this is something my organization is eligible for, you can click on view full grant opportunity, and that page will give you all the deadlines. It'll give you the dollar amounts, all of that different information that you may need to determine if you are eligible for this grant prior to going to the department's website to apply. One difference I will tell you on the grants portal, we don't host the application. You still have to go through the department's website to be able to apply for it. So you're always going to look at the information, determine if you're eligible based on the information. You're going to go to grant guidelines and then read the RFA, NOFA, or RFP before applying through the process that the department has put in place. You do have resource here. You can go to subscribe to for their notifications, or there might be planned events that are listed here under resources. One of the most important things out of the legislation that were required is to provide contact information for each grant. So here you can contact a specific person in a department about this specific grant if you have any questions about it. So going back to my dashboard here, a couple other things I want to mention is you can save current refinements. If let's say I'm always going to come back to look for infrastructure grants. That's all I'm going to look for. I'm not going to look for anything else. You can save a current refinement on right under find grants here. What it does is it drops a cookie in your browser, and every time you come back, it's going to automatically filter your result based on what you saved. But if you do clean your cookies, just know it's not going to be there anymore. So you'll have to reset that. But right now, if I were to select, as you can see, search term is infrastructure, and I want to see forecasted active grants and any agency and so forth, I can hit yes, save my search. And then next time I load this page, it's going to automatically filter that. Okay. One of the other things I want to share with all of you is if you don't want to come to the grants portal and look for grants every single day, or what's new is added, you can always subscribe to the notification up here right by the select language. And you can fill out this form. One thing I'll note is it's either or, okay? So newest grants, which is all new grants regardless of categories, or a category, okay? So as you can imagine, some grants might be multiple categories. So if you selected agriculture and environment and water and a grant was tagged with both, you will get a duplicate email. It's only going to send you email when there are new grants under those categories, or if you selected newest grant, which means all categories and all new grants, then you'll receive that email. Okay. You can do a daily or a weekly digest in your email, so you don't have to come to the portal unless you see something that catches your eye and you want to go and look into it a little bit more. So you can subscribe to our notifications here. You can always contact us through our form here or our email, our mailbox, which is cagrantsportal@library.ca.gov. If you have any questions or if you have any feedback about the grants portal, we would love to hear any feedback you might have for us as well. One other thing I will note is all of the grant data that is put in by state agencies is open source, which means you can see the data from when the grants portal went live in 2020 till now, and you can download that CSV file at any time. If you go to our statistics dashboard here, you will see that we have the CSV files for grants offered, and then we also have CSV files for post-award information. So we had a legislation expansion of AB 132, section 8334.1 back in July 1, 2022 is when it was implemented. So all grant opportunities from there on, from July 1, 2022, are required to give us post-award information. So recipient name, dollar amount that the recipient received, and a bunch of other data sets. So with that said, that data is being generated by the state agencies for those grants. You can also see our statistics dashboard here. If you're interested in looking at it, we will only be providing up to 3 years of data for post-award upfront. And then you can see, we have 22, 23, and 23, 24 currently running. So again, this data is updated periodically when things are changed. So it's always changing. And the CSV files are updated every 24 hours. So if you do download it, there might be some changes tomorrow. So just note that. And then you can see our statistics dashboard for grants offered since 2020. This is how much funding has been on the grants portal. This is how many grants our departments are adding the grants and so forth. So that statistics are available here if you're interested in looking at that. With that said, I'll go back to here. If you have any frequently asked questions, you can go to our FAQs or glossary, or contact us and let us know how the grants portal is doing. And if you have any feedback, good or bad, we want to hear it. And hopefully this is a resource you can take back to your communities and share with other organizations who might be looking for grant opportunities in a central place for state administered grants. And with that, I'll hand it back to the team.
Thank you, Shivani. That is such a great resource there for everyone to have access to. I really appreciate that. Our next speaker is David White. He's going to give you an overview of the federal grants portal, and then he'll go on with another presentation. So I'll turn it over to David.
All right. Thank you, Sarasa. Good morning, everyone. Let me start sharing my screen if I can do that. And share. Come on. Try that again. The window, the screen. Come on. All right. I'm having trouble sharing my screen for some reason. Okay. Nope. There we go. All right. Let's see if we can pull this one up. Okay. And all right. Good morning, everyone. My name is David White. I'm with the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation. This morning, I'll be doing 2 back-to-back presentations. The first one is on applying for federal funding using grants.gov. The second one will be funding opportunities specific to the United States Department of the Interior Bureau of Reclamation. Grants.gov is similar but yet very different to what the California portal is like. Grants.gov is here to try to give folks an idea of all the different funding opportunities available throughout the federal government. So 3 things we're going to talk about briefly is understanding the federal funding agency, how to search and apply on grants.gov, and then we'll end with some tips. So each agency is a little bit different, and through funding opportunities, the agency is able to further its mission, either because it's mandated by law or through particular agency discretion. Oftentimes you'll have a project or a proposal that is similar to an agency's mission. By better understanding each federal agency's missions and opportunities, you have a better idea of being a successful applicant. Keep in mind that the funding opportunities are for everyone. Oftentimes, an applicant will have a project that is a very good project, but the proposal is not tailored to that particular funding opportunity in the agency, and that application doesn't score very well. And that's what I mean by funding is for your project. Your project is not for funding. Now, most federal agencies use grants.gov to post these notices of funding opportunities, NOFOs. Now, NOFOs on grants.gov are forecasted, posted, closed, or archived. And by looking at a closed or an archived NOFO, you have a better idea of what an agency is looking to fund and how well your particular proposed project could score. Grants.gov is extensive. There are lots of different ways to find information on grants.gov, and it has some built-in applicant resources, including tutorials, frequently asked questions, and other stuff. You can also have it notify you by email of proposals that you might be interested in. And if we want to search for grants.gov for a particular grant, we would click up there, and all of a sudden everything pops up. Well, to limit it, we can search by the opportunity status, forecasted, what's coming down the pike, posted, what's an open one, closed, recently closed and archived. These are NOFOs it could be from many, many, many federal fiscal years ago. You can also search by keywords or opportunity number if you know the particular opportunity number. And the opportunity number oftentimes reflects the agency that is funding that particular NOFO. If you know your federal domestic assistance number, you can search by CFDA. You can also search sometimes by the particular agency. Now, there are limitations to grants.gov. Can you search by state or county? No, you cannot. Interestingly enough, if you were interested in a federal career, you could go to usajobs.gov and you could search by county or state. But if you wanted funding for a particular NOFO or a project, you could not search by county or state. Will you be able to do that in the future? Maybe. But for now, you have to search by keywords, an opportunity number, or by a particular funding agency. Once you find something you're interested in, you can click and it'll go further into it, and it will show you all the information and all the files and the folders and documents that you need to fill out and submit for a successful application. The SF stands for a standard form. Those are required basically across agencies. Now, how do you understand what's in a NOFO? Once you click on it, usually there is a synopsis, and that will include all the important information, such as who's funding it, when is the application period. Please pay attention to the time. Sometimes it's Pacific time, sometimes it's Eastern, but please pay attention to not only the date, but the time that the application closes. The synopsis will also include the eligible applicants and whether or not there's a cost share. Now, some agencies and some NOFOs require a non-federal cost share. Many do not. For reclamation, usually it's about a 50% non-federal cost share. Now, for reclamation, you can use anything that's not considered federal funding as your non-federal cost share. So if you get a loan from the state, you can use that as your non-federal cost share. Each NOFO will have criteria. This is exactly what the application review committee is going to evaluate your project and your proposed project. Please note that the criteria needs to be answered fully. All right. So once you've gathered everything, you can put together your application package. You can work on it online, or you can download it, work on it, and then upload it online, and then you can submit it. Once you submit it, please make sure you've got your tracking number in case something does happen, and then you'll get a receipt and email confirmations. Once your application has been accepted, it will be moved on to our financial assistance organization, and they'll take a look at that. And then oftentimes, at least with reclamation, they'll move it on to an application review committee that will review your application. Part of what the application review committee is going to look at will be how well you answered those criteria and how thoroughly you answered them. If the criteria ask a yes or no question, please begin with a yes or no answer, and then you can elaborate. If the criteria ask you to answer a particular formula or equation, please use that formula or equation. If you feel like some reason that's not the best way to understand your project, you can elaborate. It's best if you can kind of tell a compelling story about your project. Why is it important to you? Why would it be important to the agency? And that's it. That's a brief one for grants.gov. And so next we're going to talk about and everyone, can you still see the screen? I've moved on to a different presentation.
Yes, we can still see your screen.
Excellent. Thank you. All right. United States Department of the Interior, Bureau of Reclamation. So we're going to talk a little bit about some of the financial assistance opportunities and NOFOs available. There are a lot. Reclamation covers 17 West-wide states in 5 different regions. California is located in 2 different regions because we have 2 different major water systems that deliver water to our state. Our water conservation team points of contacts are right here. I believe today I'm joined by Troy Thompson from the Lower Colorado Basin region. Most everybody here can answer any questions you have. Oftentimes we will bring in folks from our Denver office because they are the funding program for a particular NOFO. And if we have any questions, we want to make sure we get it right. So we'll pull in Denver to help answer some questions. Our funding opportunities come from basically 2 different sources here in the California Great Basin region based in Sacramento, where I am, and then through our Water Smart program in Denver. Water Smart is an umbrella program that funds many different programs and projects. We're not going to go into all of them today. They are available on the website. They're available in the handbook. You've got the presentation, and then I'm going to drop into that PDF file that summarizes a whole bunch of stuff. I can talk briefly about what's here in the CGB region. We do a Cal-Fed water use efficiency NOFO, which is for both ag and urban water projects, water savings projects. We also do one for agricultural water use efficiency, and we work that one with USDA. Kevin Clancy is able to talk about the Native Americans Affairs Technical Assistance Program. All right, reclamation financial assistance, general information. When you look at that particular NOFO, it'll tell you about the federal and the non-federal cost share. It'll tell you about who's eligible. Now, if for some reason you do not have water or power delivery authority, you can work with someone who does. For instance, if a school wanted to implement a water conservation project at the school itself does not have water or power delivery authority. However, the school district could work with the local water district, and the water district could apply basically on the school and the school district's behalf. That would probably work. Now, where awards are made through a competitive process, we try to emphasize open and fair competition. The application review committee is going to review your project solely based upon the information, the 4 corners of your document. We don't do outside research because that could be unfair to you or to other applicants. And reclamation posts everything to grants.gov. Water use efficiency grants, man, it could be just about anything from cash for grass to rebates for appliances. changing out analog flow meters to digital flow meters on agricultural water use efficiency grants. It can be in-ground activities, not only meter change, but also weirs and things such as that. Now, this is what I'm going to drop into the chat because we don't have time to go through it all, and it's a whole lot of information. This is relatively hot off the presses. This is all of the Water Smart funded programs for this fiscal year. And it talks about the program, the points of contact, the eligible applicants, what the cost share is, where the funding is coming from, and the current status. It's a lot. And so I'm going to drop this into the chat. We can talk about it later. You can take a look at it. You can contact one of us. We'll be happy to go through it all. I mean, it's everything's here from small projects to gigantic water recycling projects. It's a lot of stuff. In terms of advice and insight, read the entire NOFO. If you have some questions, don't hesitate to ask. There will be a point of contact for that particular NOFO. If something seems ambiguous or unclear, ask. We'll be happy to the grants officer in charge of the NOFO will be happy to try to answer your question and make it clear for you. As I mentioned earlier, the application review committee does not know your project and will not conduct additional research. It's up to you to provide a little bit of a compelling story to answer all of the questions. The non-federal cost share can come from a variety of sources, such as state loans and funding. One of the easy ways not to skip something is to copy the criteria from the NOFO and answer each part of the question in your application. If you've got a large project, theoretically, you could divide it into phases with each one being funded separately. Each fiscal year, you could apply for to be funded under a different phase. That usually only happens with large-scale projects. And if for some reason you don't get funded and you would like some information about maybe your application and how you can make it better or more competitive, you can ask for a debrief and we'll be happy to do that. Here's some additional resources and information. And as I said earlier, I'm going to drop into the chat the Water Smart and summary, and that's about it for me. So thank you very much again, David White, Reclamation. Back to you, Sarissa.
Thank you, David. Always appreciative. Our next speaker is from the USDA, Jennifer. She'll be speaking with us.
Hello there. Hello, everyone. I'm going to share my screen here. Okay, and so as was mentioned, my name's Jennifer Strow. I'm with the USDA Rural Development, and I am going to present to you on community facilities here. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't know. Okay, so our community facilities, we fund several different types of projects: hospitals, health clinics, schools, daycares, firehouses, first responder vehicles and equipment, community centers, and more. So just to give you a high-level overview, we offer direct loans, loan guarantees, and grants to develop or improve essential public services and facilities in communities of lower than 20,000 population for our direct loans and grants, and lower than 50,000 population for our guaranteed loans. We have eligible applicants are public bodies, nonprofits, and Native American tribes. In 2023, we were able to fund $109 million throughout California, 38 projects. So for our direct loan terms and rates, currently the interest rate is at 3.5%, and that will be fixed at the time of loan approval. We go up to a 38-year term or the useful life of the project. So on some types of equipment, it would be a shorter term. Adequate security and collateral is something that we take a look at. We look at repayment ability and feasibility. And then we also require that we can show that they're unable to obtain other commercial credit. So for a loan example, a recent one that we did was in the Newcastle Fire Protection District. We funded a brand new fire station for $4.75 million. USDA was able to fund 3.78 of that, and the applicant came in with their $978,000, and it was completed in 2002. As far as our grants overview, and just something to note, we are not available on the grants portal. All applications can come directly to us via email, and I'll share information of where to get your contact information for your county at the end. So eligible applicants for grants are public bodies, special districts, nonprofit corporations, and tribes. Population of 20,000 or less, and we accept applications all year long. Our maximum grant application is for 50,000. And we typically fund, not all inclusive, but equipment for healthcare, police and fire, public buildings, transportation, and infrastructure. A few examples of some projects that we funded recently: Kings County Fire Department, Jaws of Life. Just to highlight a few other ones, we did the Heber Elementary Unified School District. We got them a school cafeteria freezer. Long Valley Charter School, which is in Doyle, California. They're constructing a new school and they should be open for business in September, so that's pretty exciting. And quite a few others. We also offer a disaster repair grants for the calendar year 2022 and 2023, and these are for presidentially declared disasters. So we offer up to 75% grants for repairs to essential community facilities damaged by disasters in the calendar year of 22 and 23, including the winter storms of December 22, fires, and earthquakes. There's no minimum or maximum on these grants. Funds can also be used to replace damaged equipment or vehicles, or to purchase equipment that's necessary to make repairs to the damaged facilities. Okay, so here's a map of our locations throughout the state of California. There's a link to look for your contact in the county that you're looking to apply for, and then my information's below. And again, appreciate being able to share our information with you, and I'll turn it back over.
Thank you. That is so important to know that there's funding available for those areas that were affected by those natural disasters. So I'm hoping there's some people from those areas that can really take advantage of that. So thank you very much, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Tian Gore, and she's also from the USDA. We still have a different type of presentation.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Tian Gore with the Moreno Valley Field Office, and I'm a loan specialist. Excuse me.
And yes, we can see your screen.
Okay, so I'll be going over the water and environmental programs. Now, these are the current water and environmental programs we have. We have the Water and Waste Disposal Loan and Grant, the Emergency Community Water Assistance Grants, Colonial Grants, Native American Grants, Search Grants, which actually, let me get the definition for that for you. The search is Special Evaluation Assistance for Rural Communities and Households. Pre-development planning grants, and calendar year 2022 disaster water grant program. The water and disposal loan and grant program is for eligible applicants, includes public bodies, including special districts, nonprofit corporations, and federally recognized tribes. Population has to be 10,000 or less. We provide comprehensive funding for construction, engineering fees, land, legal fees, and environmental costs. Loans can be combined with grants to keep user costs reasonable. These are current rates and terms. Interest rates are established each quarter. The current rate is between 2.1250 and 3.0. Interest rates are based on state non-metropolitan median household income, and our terms are 40 years. Continuation of our rates and terms. Has to be 100% California non-metropolitan. Median household income is 80,546. These are our rates for our market, intermediate, and poverty rates. and it's based on the medium household income for the area. Grant eligibility, up to 45% grant. Service area has to have an MHI of 64,000, between that and 80,000. For a grant up to 75%, service area has to have a MHI below 64,000, and the project is needed to alleviate health or sanitary problem. Next program, Emergency Community Water Assistance Grant. It's to assist rural communities that have experienced a significant decline in quality or quantity of water directly caused by emergency incident. Emergency incidents can include drought, earthquake, flood, and landslide. Grants may cover 100% of the project cost up to $1 million. And funds can be used to develop new water sources and for water treatment. Third program, Colonia Grants, 306C. Must be located within 150 miles from the U.S.-Mexican border. All colonias in California are located in Imperial, San Diego, or southern Riverside counties. $3 million is available for California at the moment. Projects that correct serious health or sanitary problems associated with drinking water and waste disposal systems. Next program is Native American 306C grant. Projects that correct serious health or sanitary problems associated with drinking water and waste disposal systems. Must have a per capita income between 26,347. Unemployment rate must be no less than 4.750. And then $4 million is the maximum per project for fiscal year 2024. And nationally, funds available for this project is $22 million. Next program is the search grant. Eligible areas. Rural areas with a population of 2,500 or less have a medium household income below 64,436, which is 80% of the state non-metropolitan medium household income. 30,000 is the max grant to pay for pre-development planning costs to support application for the WEP funding. Next program is the pre-development planning grants. Eligible areas, rural areas with a population of 10,000 or less have a medium household income below 64,436, 80% of the state non-metropolitan medium household income. 60,000 max grant to pay for pre-development planning costs to support application for the WEP funding, and requires that at least 25% of the project costs come from the applicant or third-party sources. In-kind contributions are not allowed. And the last program is the calendar year 2022 Disaster Water Grant Program. Purpose: to help eligible communities with expenses related to supporting water systems damaged by the presidentially declared disasters in calendar year 2022. The term water systems is meant to be inclusive, which means projects related to water, wastewater, stormwater, and solid waste would be eligible for grant funding. Eligible applicants, public bodies, including special districts, nonprofit corporations, federally recognized tribes, and prefabricated home communities. Eligible areas would be rural areas with a population of up to 35,000 and serving systems that experience damages, impacts related to an event recognized through a presidentially declared declaration in calendar year 2022. Eligible project costs, development, and other necessary reasonably expenses related to the eligible entity systems, damages by the event. Costs may include the in-kind repair of the systems in addition to the development of capacity and resiliency to reduce or eliminate long-term risk from hazards and their effects. Adequate documentation must be provided to demonstrate impacts to the water system. Maximum award matching requirements. There is no maximum award or matching requirements for this program. And in the medium household income, MHI will not be used to determine eligibility. MHI will play a role only if the project scoring criteria needs to be used. And this is the process we like to do for our web program. We'd like to see the applicant build support for the project, then do an initial meeting with us in USDA, and then get a preliminary engineering report and environmental report set up so we make sure the project's feasible and we know what needs to be done to get the project going. Then submit a complete application. Once the application has been reviewed and everything looks good, we'll do a letter of conditions stating the terms of the loan. We'll obligate the funding, and then disbursements after loan grant closings are start of construction. And there's an example of some of our projects. San Simeon CSD membrane filtration system. The total project cost was $989,600. We covered $500,000 of that. Rio Alto, WWTP, and construction wetlands. The total project cost was $7,329,000. We covered $5,441,000. City of Wood Lake, combined USDA investments of nearly $30 million. $6 million in loans, $154,000 in grants for the CF side of our, and then for the wet water environmental program side, we did $17 million and then $5 million in grants. This is our official website. For contacts for all loan specialists and program coordinators for the state. And then our official website and our Twitter.
Thank you for that information. Always, like I said, all the presenters always have such great programs available. Our next speaker is Brooklyn James, and she'll be giving us a presentation about what they have available. Thank you.
Hi. Sorry, my unmute button wasn't working for a second. Hello, everybody.
We hear you and we see your presentation.
Great, thank you. As she said, my name is Brooklyn James. I'm with the U.S. Environmental Protection Agency in the Brownfields program. So I'm here to talk to you about some of our grant opportunities. So to start off, I just want to remind everybody what a brownfield is. And a brownfield is a property that is complicated by the presence or the potential presence of some sort of contamination. Usually it's from past use. Typical examples of brownfield sites include illegal dump sites, old gas stations, old automotive repair shops, dry cleaners, mining, and even like ag land uses and things like that. And there's multiple different reuse options for these brownfields that can be a community asset. So one of those is affordable housing.
Brooklyn,
navigation.
Your presentation isn't forwarding, isn't that advancing?
Okay. Thanks for letting me know. Let me try this again. Okay. Is it advancing now?
Yes, we see. Yes, it is advancing now. Yes.
Okay.
You might want to show the pictures of what you were saying and what when you were giving the description of what a brownfield is.
Yeah. Sorry about that. I feel like that happens every time. Okay, so as I was saying, a brownfield is a property that is complicated by the presence or the potential presence of hazardous substance or contamination. Okay, and some of the typical brownfield sites that we tend to see are things like old gas stations, old automotive repair shops, dry cleaners, ag land, and it could even be like illegal dumping sites. But there's countless reuse options for these that can be community assets. For example, affordable housing, navigation centers or transitional housing centers, food resiliency hubs and health clinics, community parks and open space, community gardens, environmentally friendly transportation like EV charging stations, and renewable energy projects like solar farms. And our Brownfields program has funding for all steps of this process, starting with site identification to environmental site assessments, planning for cleanup and reuse, the actual remediation of the site, and also revitalization planning. So for our programs, these are generally the entities that will be eligible to apply. This includes states, federally recognized tribes, nonprofit 501c3s, and sometimes C4s, general purpose units of local government like cities, counties, school districts, and qualified community development entities. I just wanted to highlight some of the partnerships that can form through working with the Brownfields program, depending on what your project is, but you can form partners with land trusts, city and county planning departments, affordable housing developers, federal and state governments, and more. So the first program I wanted to highlight is actually a non-competitive program. It's not a grant. It's a free contractor assistance where EPA's contractors will come out to a site that you've identified that you would like to do environmental site assessments on, and we can do phase 1 and phase 2, as well as data evaluation completely for free. And these applications are open year round. It's online. It's a pretty simple form to fill out. A couple things we do ask is that there's some sort of redevelopment in mind for the property. Doesn't have to have a specific plan of reuse yet, but just know or have an idea of what you might reuse it for in the future, and that would serve the public good. And then we've been focusing on working in underserved communities. So that QR code would take you to the website that's got more information and application. Now I'll talk about our competitive grants. These are open annually. The first one we have is our community-wide assessment grant. Under this grant, you can perform brownfields inventory, phase 1 and phase 2 environmental site assessments, community engagement and outreach, and cleanup and redevelopment planning. We're offering up to $500,000 for these grants. And we don't have the new information for the FY25 cycle just yet. So this is from last year's, but these numbers are subject to change. So we also have our Assessment Coalition grant, which has the same eligible activities. The idea here is that there would be one lead entity, which can be a state, county, tribe, regional council of governments. That is the lead that would apply, and they would have 2 to 4 partners, typically community-based organizations or nonprofits that might not have the capacity to apply for and manage a grant on their own. And as a group would work towards cleaning up brownfields in a target area. And for this grant, we have up to $1.5 million. I mentioned redevelopment planning is an option under these grants. We have a whole list of what some planning activities are that are eligible. These are some popular ones, particularly the preliminary site design is a cool one that people like to use. So next we have our cleanup grant. And under this grant, you can do the actual remediation of whatever contamination you've identified. You can fund community involvement. You can pay for regulatory oversight fees, like if you're working with DTSC, for example. And then you can also do some reuse planning. You do have to be the sole owner of the site to apply for this grant, and you have to have sufficient site characterization prior to your application, which usually just means a completed phase 2 ESA. We have 3 pools of funding for this grant: 500,000, 2 million, and 5 million. And there's no cost share for any of these grants because of the bill funding that we currently have. Next is our multi-purpose grant. This is essentially a combination of the community-wide assessment and the cleanup grant. So you can perform any of those activities under this grant, up to $1 million. We do ask that under this grant, you perform at least one phase 2 environmental site assessment, one cleanup, and create a reuse strategy for one or more sites. Next, we have our revolving loan fund grant. This one's a little bit different, but it allows the applicant to give out sub-grants and loans for site remediation. This is one of the only opportunities where privately held sites can get funding through our program. The entity that applies needs to be able to effectively administer loans to other entities. And this one's up to $1 million, but you can receive supplemental funding over time. And lastly, we have our Brownfields Job Training Grant. This is a workforce development grant that is aimed to train environmental technicians within your community. So these people can receive multiple certifications and you can tailor those to whatever the market demand is. So like HAZWOPER, asbestos removal, things of that nature. Governments and nonprofits are eligible to apply. This slide has a incorrect part. The RFA is recently opened. It's open right now, and it's open until August 15th. You can get up to $500,000 to start and manage a workforce training program. So I wanted to shout out the Center for Creative Land Recycling. They are technical assistance to brownfields providers. They can give you feedback on your applications. I would suggest starting to get involved with them as soon as possible because they do have a lot of people to help, but they're a really, really good resource to answer questions as well. Here's just a little bit of the timeline. What we call our MARC grants, the Multipurpose Assessment Cleanup and RLF, usually open in September and are open for around 60 days. And then the job training grants, as I mentioned, they're open now and selections will be announced in the fall. So if you want to stay updated, we have a listserv where we send out announcements about grants and sparingly about webinars and other opportunities that come up, such as this funding fair. And that wraps up my presentation. Here's my contact information if you want to reach out, or I'll be here in the breakout room. Thank you.
Thank you, Brooklyn, for that. I always like to see how we can clean up areas that are this doesn't look right for the communities, and your program always will help that out. Thank you very much. Right now, we're going to break have a 10-minute break, and then when we return, we'll have the State Water Resources Control Board give their presentation. My clock on my computer says 10:03, so we'll come back at 10:13. Hello, everyone. My computer says 10:13. I'll give you a moment to get back in so that we can continue. We just finished with our federal agencies, and now we are going to begin with our state agencies. And our first one is the State Water Resources Control Board, and Owen will be giving us a presentation about the funding available through the Water Board.
All right. Can everyone hear me? Can you see my presentation? Oh, actually,
Yeah. We can hear you. Yes, we can see your presentation.
all right, perfect. So, good morning. My name is Owen Bratton, and I work in the Division of Financial Assistance at the State Water Resource Control Board. Presentation today will give a brief introduction to the many grant and loan programs offered. To learn more about each of the programs, I encourage you to visit the CFCC handbook. The State Water Board has several wastewater funding programs that provide funding for planning and construction projects to restore and maintain compliance with waste discharge requests and National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System permits. Grants are available for projects benefiting small disadvantaged communities. Priority is given to septic to sewer projects. These programs include the Clean Water State Revolving Fund and the Water Recycling Funding Program. The State Water Board also has numerous drinking water funding programs that I will discuss in the next few slides. In terms of long-term solutions, the State Water Board provides funding for drinking water infrastructure projects needed to achieve or maintain compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act requirements. Grants and low-interest loans are available, and priority is given to projects that address categories A through C or consolidation. In addition, we have funding for lead service line inventory and replacement. Programs offered include the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund, the Expedited Drinking Water Grant Funding Program, and the Lead Service Line Replacement Funding Program. The State Water Board funds drinking water interim solutions that address urgent drinking water needs. Eligible projects include bottled water and hauled water, well repair, well rehabilitation and replacement, vending machines, point-of-use devices, emergency interties, and treatment systems. State small water systems and domestic wells serving disadvantaged communities and low-income households are eligible. These programs include the Cleanup and Abatement Urgent Drinking Water Needs Program, the County-wide and Regional Funding Program, and the Emergency Drinking Water Cleanup and Abatement Account. The State Water Board also provides funding that benefits daycare facilities, preschools, and K-12 schools. These programs fund point-of-use and point-of-entry treatment systems, fixture replacement and installation of drinking water fountains, and provision of interim drinking water supplies. These programs are administered by nonprofit organizations, and the programs in question are the Bottled Water for Schools Grant Program and the Drinking Water for Schools Grant Program. There are several State Water Board funded drinking water funding programs that are administered by counties and nonprofit organizations. These programs provide funds to individuals or households served by domestic wells or state small water systems to address water quality issues. The programs in question are the Domestic Water Wells and State Smalls Program and the Drinking Water Assistance for Households Program. The Bipartisan Infrastructure Law, also known as the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act of 2021, provided the US EPA with $60 billion over 5 years to support water infrastructure, environmental cleanups, and clean air protections. The state of California received $4.3 billion of those federal funds to supplement the state revolving funds. This supplemental funding went towards additional funding for the CWSRF and DWSRF programs, lead service line replacement, and addressing emerging contaminants. So the Emerging Contaminants Funding Program provides funds towards projects that reduce people's exposure to perfluoroalkyl and polyfluoroalkyl substances and other emerging contaminants through their drinking water. Funding sources for this program include the DWSRF Emerging Contaminant Fund, the Emerging Contaminants in Small and Disadvantaged Communities Fund, and the California PFAS General Fund. technical assistance is available to support drinking water and wastewater needs. Examples of project types that TA can assist with include funding applications, project planning and administration, engineering and environmental services, legal assistance, rate studies, income surveys, capacity building, and emergency response for drinking water only. Priority is given to small, disadvantaged communities and in accordance with drinking water and wastewater funding priorities. Requests are accepted continuously and assistance will be granted based on capacity and program priorities. The State Water Board has several site cleanup funding programs. There are grants for cleanup of a site contaminated by leaking petroleum underground storage tanks, USTs, where there's no financially responsible party. In addition, we have grants and loans to assist small business UST owners and operators to come into compliance with UST regulatory requirements. Programs in question are the Orphan Site Cleanup Fund, and the SB 445 Site Cleanup Subaccount Program, and the Removal, Replacement, or Upgrading Underground Storage Tanks Program, so known as RUST. The Non-Point Source NPS program, which funds projects to reduce and mitigate the effects of non-point source pollutants such as sediments, pesticides, and nutrients to waters of the state within priority water sets. Completed proposals are accepted via FAST, and the last application period ended on December 15th, 2023, although this funding is annual. At this time, I'd like to point out available resources. All of the programs covered in today's presentation are included in the CFCC handbook. The Division of Financial Assistance webpage contains guidance documents, contact information, and frequently asked questions. To stay informed, please sign up for one or more of the State Water Board's email subscription lists. Please, in particular, look out for the Division of Financial Assistance. Many of the funding programs offered at the State Water Board, including the Drinking Water SRF and Clean Water SRF, use the Financial Assistance Application Submittal tool, FAST. FAST is a web-based interface that is accessible 24 hours a day, and the FAST Help Desk is available Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 p.m. Feel free to call or email them your questions. If you have questions about the funding programs outlined, please join us at the virtual breakout session today, or you can reach out to the DFA General Inquiries line at 916-327-9978 after the funding fair. On behalf of the State Water Board's Division of Financial Assistance, thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you, Owen. We appreciate that information. And again, I encourage all to visit the virtual booths at the end. It's very helpful. They're very informative, and you can ask all types of questions because they're there for you, and there's no end time for that. Thank you. Next speaker is from the Strategic Growth Council. And so Owen will stop sharing his screen, and Leanne can start sharing theirs.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Brianne Logasa. I'm with the Strategic Growth Council. Let me share my screen. Alrighty. All right, so today I'll be talking specifically about the Affordable Housing Sustainable Communities program at SGC. We do have many programs at the Strategic Growth Council, which I will touch on the end. But for the bulk of the presentation today, I will be talking about AHSC. All right, jumping in, AHSC, the mission is to really help reduce greenhouse gas emissions, strengthen the economy, improve our public health and safety, and help our disadvantaged communities. AHSC is part of the California Climate Investments, which is essentially our cap and trade dollars put into work. So it's the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. And we get a portion of all the proceeds from the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund in order to fund the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program. Now, what exactly does our program fund? It funds affordable housing. We want to make sure it's near transportation, public transit, so we fund components for public transportation as well. Zero emission vehicles and transit amenities, active transportation infrastructure, and urban greening such as trees, water infiltration, gardens, etc. And just to give you a snapshot of what has kind of gone on in AHSC up till this point, we are currently in our round 8. So this data is collected from rounds 1 through 7. And we have had 185 projects across California with more than $3 billion invested. We have helped build over 17,000 affordable homes, which have reduced 5 million metric tons of CO2. And we've also helped build over 290 miles of new and improved bikeways. So this kind of encapsulates everything that AHSC attempts to accomplish. Now to get into a little bit of the nitty gritty, as I mentioned, the major component of the Affordable Housing and Sustainable Communities program is the affordable housing. So we do fund both rental and home ownership projects for affordable housing. We do need to make sure that the affordable housing component of any project makes up 50% of the total funding request. That's just kind of in our statute, as we want to make sure we are 50% funding affordable housing. Now, we also fund housing-related infrastructure. So infrastructure improvements that are sort of a condition of approval. So that's like sewage, water hookup, trash, all those things. New this year, we also fund factory-built housing components and also on-site energy storage or battery arrays. Now, for our transportation side of things, we kind of break it up into 2 different segments. The first is sustainable transportation infrastructure. And to describe what STI means, basically picture what will help your experience on transit make it better, what will make it more efficient, fast, those types of things. So that is actually funding new transit routes, new transit buses and trains, improving bikeways, sidewalks, crosswalks. That just makes your experience as a transit or as an active participant and an active walker, biker, just make that experience better. Now, for transportation related amenities or TRA, that is for making your experience waiting for transit better. So that includes adding bike parking or bus shelters, making sure it's well lit and safe at your bus stop, adding greenery, urban trees, things of that nature. And then we also fund resident programs or community programs for up to 3 years. So that includes transportation and safety programs, air pollution programs, resident services, tenant legal counseling, so on and so forth. Now to get into a little bit of kind of the more of the statutory piece of this. So like I said, we need to make sure that 50% of our funds do go to affordable housing. And then we also want to make sure 50% of our funds are available to disadvantaged communities. And in order to make sure that our funding is spread equitably throughout the state, we also have specific goals of making sure that different project area types are being funded. So our project area types are transit-oriented development. So that's like very kind of metropolitan urban cities in California. Think like Oakland, Los Angeles. We also have more of like a suburban area. So like Fresno, Sonoma County usually falls into this category, things like that. And we also have a rural category. So that'd be more of our rural communities throughout California. And then we also have a goal of funding at least 10% tribal entities to make sure that our tribes are getting an equitable share of this funding. And then we also want to make sure we have at least 1 project spread throughout 8 designated regions throughout California, just to make sure we're covering our bases geographically. Now, this is kind of the quintessential AHSC project. We have housing, bikeways, safe sidewalks, transit service, lots of street trees. This is just sort of a picture of our vision for AHSC. Now, we don't do this project alone. The Strategic Growth Council administers the AHSC program, but the Department of Housing and Community Development, HCD, they're very essential in helping with implementation. And then the California Air Resources Board is imperative for us in order to measure greenhouse gas emissions for this project. We also offer technical assistance for cities, jurisdictions, transit agencies, nonprofit developers, that are interested in applying to AHSC. So we have 6 providers under one contract. And I can put in the chat a little bit later the link to access that technical assistance. This is just a little bit more about our technical assistance, just to help folks engage in the program. We do capacity building, help build partnerships among, again, like jurisdictions and developers and transit agencies, truly help them have a winning project. Now, I want to give a quick update on our timeline for this round. These dates, some of them may seem outdated now. We did have a round 8 applications due in March of this year, and we will award in August. But the reason I list this timeline is because we are on an annual cycle. So this timeline will look very similar for 2025. So starting for round 9, this December is when we will likely release guidelines for round 9. January is when our NOFA will be released, followed by applications being due in March of 2025, and then award again next August. Now, because this is such a complex program, we do have an ask that you ask for a minimum of $10 million and a maximum of $50 million. And so that's just to make sure that you are getting the most worth your time in doing the application. All right, as I said, AHSC is not the only program at SGC. We have many great programs that I encourage you all to look into. These are the programs that are currently searching for their next round of funding, just because of the budget deficit for this year. But these are wonderful programs that I highly encourage you to look into. The TCC program, Community Resilience Centers program, Regional Climate Collaboratives, and Tribal Capacity Building Pilot Program. I will be in the break rooms later if you have questions about these programs or AHSC or about SGC in general. You can also find out more about these particular projects and programs in the CFCC handbook. And with that, I am all done. Thank you.
Thank you for that information, always helpful. Here is from the Rural Community Assistance Corporation, and they'll be giving us some information about their funding opportunities.
Hi there. My name is Cody Brunker. Let me get my slides up here. A second. All right. Can you guys hear me all right?
Yes, we hear you and we can see your slides.
All righty. So my name is Cody Brunker. I'm a loan officer here at Rural Community Assistance Corporation. And Rural Community Assistance Corporation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization that operates in 13 Western states and Pacific Islands. We serve Indigenous and rural communities through training, technical and financial assistance, and advocacy. Oh, that's the slide I was supposed to be on there. All right. The RCAC Community and Environmental Services Department provides technical assistance to rural communities to build, improve, manage, operate, or finance drinking water and wastewater systems. RCAC has helped rural communities access millions of dollars in grants and loans and train thousands of individuals through customized on-site technical assistance and workshops. We understand that infrastructure development can be an extensive project and present many challenges that rural communities may not have the capacity to take on. Our technical assistance can help maneuver around many of the programs you have heard about today. I'll highlight a few of the areas where TA may be available to help your community. All right, we have providers that can help you to apply on the FAST website or USDA Rural Development Apply. Financial analysis assesses real operating costs and presents alternative rate structures for board consideration and adoption. RCAC provides rate studies to water and wastewater utilities to promote utility sustainability, rate stability, and fairness to ratepayers. Our policy development folks help develop financial, managerial, or operational processes, emergency response plans, vulnerability assessments, O&M manuals, and operation plans. Regional collaboration among rural communities is an innovative way to help small water and wastewater small water and wastewater systems maintain compliance, improve aging infrastructure, and become financially sustainable over time. Our local presence allows us to develop partnerships with communities to identify needs, set goals, and help communities select the best options to meet those goals. We also provide training where we work with operators and administrations to ensure delivery of safe drinking water. Median household income surveys help determine eligibility for state and federal DAC status. We conduct median household income surveys for drinking water or wastewater service areas if there's reason to believe that the available income data is not an accurate representation of the median household income within the permitted service area. In addition to our technical assistance, RCAC provides loans for environmental projects. Eligible projects include water, wastewater, solid waste projects that are located in a rural community with a population of less than 50,000. And the system must primarily serve the low-income community. All right, who is eligible? That would be nonprofit organizations, government entities, federal or state recognized tribal entities. And if you have any questions about eligibility, you'll find my contact info listed at the end of these slides. All right, here's an example of an environmental loan that we recently made. This public utility district operates an older wastewater treatment plant that is nearing its design capacity. The California State Water Resource Control Board has committed a total of just over $10 million in grant funding for improvements to expand and update the treatment plant. In these large construction projects, the general contractor typically has 30-day payment terms, but it often takes the State Water Resource Control Board 60 to 90 days to review the reimbursement request and process the payment. In these cases, RCAC can provide a bridge loan or a revolving line of credit to pay the general contractor within 30 days, while the utility district awaits grant reimbursement from the state. This second example is for a municipal water district that needed to expand their existing storage capacity. The cost of the tank, installation, and connection was $402,000. RCAC provided a 6-month interest-only period for the district to complete the connection, followed by a 9.5-year repayment. As another example, I recently funded a loan to a district for the purchase of a parcel of land. This district anticipated an increase in their community's population, transitioning from a seasonal to year-round residents, and needed to add a well in their system. In this instance, we funded the purchase of the parcel and provided a 12-month drawdown period to drill and connect the well. This loan is being amortized over 20 years, and it is secured by real estate. And that's it for my presentation. Here's our contact info. Barbara presented last week, and she covers Southern California. I cover Northern California, and you can get in touch with us at that info there. I will be in the break room here at the end. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thank you for that, Cody. We appreciate that. Our next speaker is from iBank. Lena Moeller will give you some great information on the financial financing that they do at iBank.
Thank you, Sarasa. Let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay. Sarasa, can you see my screen all right?
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you very much. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us here today. My name is Lena Moeller. I'm going to give you a brief overview of iBank and then talk specifically about the ISERF loan program, or the Infrastructure State Revolving Fund program. The slide deck will be available after the CFCC presentation, so no need to take any notes. After the presentations, we will also be at the breakout room, and we look forward to talking to you about your specific projects and answer any questions that you may have. iBank was created back in 1994 by our state legislature to provide low-cost financing options for eligible borrowers within the state. There's a wide range of infrastructure that's eligible to be financed under various programs within iBank. I'll go over briefly some of the different programs as well. We are a state agency. We are housed in the Governor's Office of Business and Economic Development, also known as GOBIZ. Our main focus areas are creating and preserving jobs. Our mission also includes helping underserved communities to get the infrastructure and help that's needed. We're also addressing climate change. We have a climate financing program, which I'll briefly mention. And we also just recently have also started a venture capital program as well. So we're addressing infrastructure and climate change issues throughout the state in a meaningful way. This slide shows you the four main programs within iBank: the ISERF loan program, which I'm going to be focusing on in this presentation. We've got a climate financing unit. We also have a bond financing unit, primarily doing conduit general purpose bonds. And they facilitate both tax-exempt and taxable bonds. To date, we've issued over a couple of billion in bonds to date. Under the ISERF loan program, we've also approved over $1 billion in loans. Unlike our infrastructure with the direct lending ISERF program, we do not lend directly to small businesses. We have a small business finance center that works with financial development corporations to do guarantees for small business loans. And recently, we also have playing a part in the SSBCI loan program, and we have a matching lender portal platform on our website as well. If you have questions about any of this, we'll be happy to answer some questions for you in the virtual booths at the end of the presentations, and we can also connect you with the unit managers. I want to go over some examples and types of eligible projects under the ISERF loan program. Our borrowers can be any subdivision of state and local government, including departments, counties, agencies, JPAs, special districts. We can also do nonprofits under certain circumstances, and we can talk a little bit more about that if you have questions later on at the booth. The first picture there you see is a project we did for the city of Watsonville. It was an SB 1383 project, which is the Senate bill that addresses the organic waste collection and recycling process. That's the SB 1383. The project consists of a new landfill that included green and wood waste processing plant. The project also included a piece of equipment and a landfill compactor. That was a 25-year project, and the interest rate was 4.23%. Our interest rates, just to give you a brief overview, is based on the municipal index, or the MMD. We do factor in subsidies based on community subsidies related to median housing income or unemployment rate. And we also provide other subsidies based on climate factors and other related factors as well. The Encinita Streetscape project was a $20 million project, which included enhancing crosswalks, raised medians, roundabouts, and buffered bike lanes. They also included drainage improvements and new stormwater infrastructure. The Tiburon Fire District project included construction of a new 54,555 square foot, two-story fire station building at the location of the existing Station 10 building project. As far as project types, a wide range of project types are eligible under the ISAF loan program. We do water systems, treatment plants, roadways, community centers. The one project type that per our government code we cannot do is housing, but we can do infrastructure projects around housing. And I can talk a little bit more about that in our next slide. Our project cost that can be included in the loan amount could be anything ranging from designing, acquiring land, planning, construction, improving or restoring the project within the state. The one thing that we would not do would be deferred maintenance. So as long as it's an upgrade or a new build or construction of some sort, those would be eligible. But deferred maintenance is cost that would not be eligible. We can also include soft costs into the project, planning costs, purchase of land, but we could not just do the project with planning costs or other fees included without the actual construction project. So the actual construction of the project and the project itself needs to be included in the project for it to be eligible. And as I mentioned earlier, we can do all types of projects excluding housing, but we can do infrastructure projects around the housing development. So if you've got sewer, wastewater, water lines, street lights, everything that's on public land and the project itself is a public project, that would be eligible under the ISAF loan program. So why choose iBank? What are some of the benefits of coming to iBank? One of the things is we do some in-depth analysis upfront. We have a preliminary review stage before we invite you to apply. There's no surprises. You work directly with one of our staff. We look at cash flow very closely. We look at financial statements. During the pandemic, because of the ups and downs, especially in general fund projects, we looked a lot more closely at projections, and we continue to do that. Our loans are usually for tax exempt purposes because our ISAF bond money is tax exempt. We make sure there's no private activity that's included in the project. If there's a small portion of the project that has private activity, we could finance it with our equity instead of using our ISAF bond money. iBank will want to see lease agreements if you do not own the land where the project is being built, to make sure that there are no clauses that may interfere with the project being built. Also, we want to make sure that the land is being leased for the duration of the repayment term. With iBank, you save time. As I mentioned earlier, we conduct a preliminary review and provide feedback before inviting you to apply. We also provide technical assistance. Our loan officers are assigned specifically to different projects, so you work directly with them and they answer questions for you, and it's a very transparent process. You can receive 100% financing for these projects. We do allow you to have multiple sources of financing for the project. So for example, you might have a project that's partially financed by grants, or you've got the borrower's balance sheet funding a portion of it, and iBank can be one of the sources of the project. So we can do 100% financing, or we can be part of a project as well. As long as when we take the loan to the iBank board for approval, we want to make sure that the other sources of financing or funding are in place. We are AAA rated, and therefore our cost of funds do tend to be lower, and we pass those savings on to our borrowers. You receive a low competitive interest rate, and we can do up to 30 years on the term of our loans as long as the useful life is supported by that project. We don't employ any scoring mechanisms. There's no wait list. And we also don't have application windows. It's a first come, first served service throughout the calendar year. Our bond unit issues our bonds for the ISAF loan program, so we don't run out of funds. If we are in between issuing bonds, which typically recently has been every couple of years, we use our iBank balance sheet money for these ISAF loans, and then we reimburse ourselves when we issue bonds. There's two types of loan structures. One is the enterprise fund loan structure, where the repayment source is an enterprise fund, for example, a water project or a sewer wastewater project. In that case, we take a pledge on the system revenues directly. If the repayment source is a general fund, so for example, if you've got a police station or a fire station or a community center that's being repaid by a general fund, or if there's a measure that was passed, we also look at it as a general fund project. And in that case, we take a leased asset. Either the project itself can be the leased asset, or we can take any other unencumbered asset that's owned by the borrower. For example, a fire station or a community center, as I mentioned. We do need executed reimbursement resolutions to be submitted prior to the iBank board meeting. The reimbursement resolution clause is included in the borrower's resolution, and this allows you to include costs that you've incurred up to 60 days prior to the date of the resolution. So with that, I want to kind of leave you with some information on how to contact us. On the screen, you can see our phone number and our direct email inbox, infrastructureloans@ibank.ca.gov. Feel free to reach out to us via the website. We have an intake form on the iBank website for the ISAF loan program, and actually for all the programs, we have intake forms. So feel free to reach out to us, and we look forward to seeing you at the virtual booth after the end of the presentations. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Lena, for that information. We appreciate it. Our next speaker is from the Governor's Office of Emergency Services. They will be giving us some more great information on the funding available through their program.
All right, it would help if I unmuted myself, wouldn't it? Let me know if you guys can see my screen, okay?
Yes, we can, but it's kind of small. You have,
Let
was it just me?
me see if I can switch that around. Oh, nope, that is not.
There we go. It's full screen now. Thank you.
All right. Good afternoon or good morning, everyone. Sorry, this is Melissa Boudre. I am the Resilience Branch Chief for the newly established branch here at California Office of Emergency Services. It's inclusive of our Technical Assistance Division, which is a newly established division as well as our Hazard Mitigation Planning Division. Just a little bit of background of our mission. The Resilience Branch of the California Governor's Office of Emergency Services is dedicated to fostering a resilient California by aligning mitigation planning with grant selection and implementation. Our mission is to empower communities, including those historically underserved, to compete on national and state levels for funds that enhance their resilience against natural disasters. Through innovative projects and technical assistance, we aim to reduce long-term risks, promote climate adaptation, and fortify infrastructure, fostering a state that thrives in the face of adversity. A little bit about our programmatic overview for hazard mitigation assistance. What is hazard mitigation? Our technical definition, as provided by our Federal Emergency Management Agency partners, is that hazard mitigation is any sustained action taken to reduce or eliminate long-term risk to people and property from natural hazard events and their effects. The long-term impact of hazard mitigation actions can be distinguished from those actions that are more closely associated with immediate preparedness, response, and recovery activities, as hazard mitigation is the only emergency management phase specifically dedicated to breaking the cycle of damage, reconstruction, and repeated damage. So, and we intend to try and work towards leveraging this funding and these projects to try and prevent the impacts of catastrophic events on the state of California. Our hazard mitigation programs include several separate funding programs, including our hazard mitigation grant program, known as HMGP, and sometimes more commonly known as 404, which is available immediately after a major disaster declaration. The intent is to reduce risks from natural disasters. That program is compiled or an allocation of a 20% of the total federal investment from individual assistance and public assistance, which are the federal funding programs that come about after a federal disaster declaration. HMGP post-fire, which is specifically for our FMAG grants, which are fire management assistance grants, which is just for our specifically for large fire disasters. And that prioritizes communities impacted by wildfire to mitigate fire and post-fire hazards. Our flood mitigation assistance program and flood mitigation assistance Swift Current, which is an annual competitive grant program intended to reduce or eliminate the risk of repetitive flood damage to buildings and structures that are insured under the National Flood Insurance Program and that are NFIP insured. Our Building Resilient Infrastructure and Communities, or BRIC program, is an annual nationally competitive funding program for new and innovative infrastructure projects that reduce risks from natural hazards. So we have those two funding programs that are nationally competitive that come about every year. And we expect to see the funding allocation or funding opportunities for BRIC and FMA probably being announced in August. Whereas HMGP and HMDP post-fire come about only after a disaster declaration has been put in place. And so we generally see those pretty frequently throughout the year, unfortunately, based on the impacts of catastrophic events in California. We also want to highlight the Rehabilitation of High Hazard Potential Dam, HHPD program, which is administered and managed by our DWR partners, but it is a technical planning, design, and construction assistance program that supports rehabilitation of eligible high hazard potential dams in jurisdictions that address those dam hazards, specifically those that are designated in their local hazard mitigation plan. Some of the eligible activities, and this is not an exhaustive list, but I do want to highlight some of the eligible activities within our grant programs. Our planning grants, which are specifically to develop a local hazard mitigation plan, whether that is a new plan or an updated plan. And I just want to highlight and point out that in order to access any of our mitigation programs, a local hazard mitigation plan is required if you are a local jurisdiction. The only exception is private nonprofits who are eligible for hazard mitigation grant program, the HMGP program. They do not require an LHMP to be able to apply for mitigation funding. Planning related activity grants, which aim to integrate local mitigation plans into other planning mechanisms like your safety element or your emergency operations plan, and then also incorporate outreach and education for those planning elements, as well as floodplain management. Project scoping, which is used for mitigating a problem or solution, even if you don't know necessarily how to approach that problem or solution or what that solution might be. You can use these funding mechanisms to be able to develop the scope through our advanced assistance type projects. And that will help you kind of identify what the best course of action would be to mitigate those potential hazards. And so we'll be able to fund that process, which includes developing a strategy, making sure you're doing some of the research and getting some of those environmental requirements completed. Construction projects, which are structural mitigation, architecture, elevation projects, reconstruction, drainage improvement, flood control, and nature-based solutions projects. And then we want to highlight nature-based solutions, which are include but are not limited to restoration of grasslands, rivers, floodplains, wetlands, dunes and reefs, living shorelines, soil stabilization, aquifer storage, and recovery bioretention systems. We really are trying to highlight and focus a lot of our attention on nature-based solutions because we do feel like they tend to be the most resilient and most sustainable long-term. So who is eligible for our funding programs? All of our state agency partners are eligible for our programs, and they are actually covered by our state hazard mitigation plan. So state agencies are not required to have their own individual local hazard mitigation plan, but are eligible to apply for all of our mitigation programs. Local governments, including counties, cities, towns, special districts, federally recognized tribes, and private nonprofits who are eligible for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program 404, but are not eligible for the nationally competitive BRIC and FMA programs. And just as a highlight, all entities must have a FEMA-approved, locally adopted LHMP, with the exception being private nonprofits who are exempt from the requirement of having a local hazard mitigation plan to apply for HMGP. Submitting a subgrant through Cal OES, so just a little bit of a highlight of the process. We have an incredibly experienced technical assistance team. So the first step in the process is to reach out to us to set up a project scope and call. And that gives us an opportunity to kind of talk through potential courses of action, get an idea of what your vision is for what your mitigation project might be, and to help us kind of start troubleshooting potential ideas of what might be the best course of action for you, which program might be the best fit. The next step would be to submit a notice of interest, which we accept on a rolling basis at any time. I know that we post our notices of funding opportunities on our website, which are typically directed to specific funding opportunities. But our aim or our intention is to be able to make sure we have a huge docket of potential sub-applications and notices of interest that are prepared for any funding opportunity, so we can make sure that your project is matched with the right funding program where it's going to be the most competitive. So even if a funding opportunity is posted and you're not selected specifically for that funding opportunity, our goal is to make sure that your project is going to be submitted in the funding opportunity where it's most likely to get selected. So with that, we receive those on a rolling basis and we adjudicate them based on eligibility and feasibility and cost effectiveness. When we're developing our sub-applications, we'll work with you. We have an entire technical assistance division now who's tasked with working with our jurisdictions and our applicants on creating a competitive sub-application for these grant programs. That means actually going through the process, making sure you have a benefit cost analysis that meets the requirements, making sure that you understand all of the requirements of the environmental historic preservation review process, so that all of those elements are incorporated into your project sub-application, so that it's most likely to be streamlined through the process when it's being reviewed by FEMA. Once Cal OES reviews all of the sub-applications, we adjudicate them on a pretty stringent prioritization scale, and then we select projects to submit to FEMA. We also will probably, more likely than not, that review process will generate some requests for information, which would just be between ourselves here at Cal OES and our jurisdiction or the applicant, sub-applicants, so that we can make sure that we're getting all the information required to submit your application. And then once we submit that to FEMA based on their deadline or their timeline, FEMA may have additional requests for information from the jurisdiction or sub-applicant, and we'll facilitate that back and forth communication to make sure they're answered in a timely manner. So one of the things I do want to highlight for all of our programs and our funding opportunities is that we want to factor equity into the funding considerations. We tend to see a pretty high consistency of the same sub-applicants who are applying for grants because we want to make sure that, but we do want to make sure that we are providing an opportunity for all of our jurisdictions and additional equity resources to those that are most vulnerable. So when we're adjudicating these projects, we're looking at multiple requirements for social vulnerability, including the vulnerability map that's developed by our team, FEMA's National Risk Index, the CDC's Social Vulnerability Index, the Climate Economic Justice Screening Tool, and then FEMA's Community Disaster Resiliency Zone platforms. So we look at the combination of all of these different tools to adjudicate where we are providing the most support to those that are most in need. So we're trying to highlight some of those in some of these most recent funding opportunities by narrowing the scope of the funding opportunity for communities that are particularly at high risk or high social vulnerability. For BRIC and FMA, the scoring or ranking criteria is incorporated into equity considerations as a requirement for those funding opportunities, specifically for disadvantaged communities. And within HMGP, it's our requirement at the state level to consider those as our ranking on priority considerations for those projects. So to highlight some of our recent HMGP funding opportunities, these are the ones that are associated with a disaster declaration. So within the last year's atmospheric rivers, which are DRs 4683 and 4699, we had a combined solicitation of over 137 sub-applications, which we submitted for over $500 million worth of grants. And these are guaranteed funding opportunities. Once we submit them to FEMA, as long as they're eligible, feasible, and cost-effective, anything that we submit within the HMGP program is competitive within the state when we're adjudicating those projects, but they're guaranteed funding once we submit them to FEMA, which is in contrast to BRIC and FMA, which are nationally competitive, which means we are submitting sub-applications that are eligible, feasible, and cost-effective, but FEMA is then adjudicating them based on all projects that they are receiving from across the country for that funding allocation. So we received and submitted a significant number of projects for consideration. For 4750, which was declared in November of 2023, it was the 30-day estimate for that program was only $16 million, which is a pretty small funding opportunity. We received over $415 million in notices of interest. So that's about 99 NOIs, which for us is incredibly exciting. It means that our folks that our jurisdictions are eager to apply for these funding opportunities, but it does make it a lot more competitive within the state for us to be able to adjudicate which ones will be selected for that $16 million bucket. And for 4758, which was most recently declared in February, our 30-day estimate for that is only $9.7 million. This is an individual assistance only declaration. So that means it's going to be a pretty small pot of funding for us to be able to adjudicate projects for. We have a current funding opportunity for this disaster declaration open at right now. We're accepting NOIs specifically for this disaster declaration until the end of the week. It's a really quick turnaround because what we would like to do is to adjudicate those 99 NOIs that we received for 4750 and see if any of those could potentially be considered for 4758. We will also have a funding opportunity available for 4769, which is the most recent atmospheric rivers that we saw more recently, I think in March, April. And so that's the public assistance disaster, which means we will have a little bit larger funding pot, but it still was only 9 counties that were declared in that disaster. So we don't anticipate a huge funding opportunity like we did for the atmospheric rivers last year, which was almost the entire state that was declared for those disasters. A little bit about the technical assistance process. So we go through a pretty consistent process where we identify the problem. We ask you guys to kind of envision what it is that you're trying to resolve. All of our projects or programs have to be resolving or in response to a natural hazard. And that's what we're trying to mitigate here. So I know that there's some questions about, can we use mitigation funding for large scale homeland security types of mitigation projects? And that's not really what these programs are for. They're specifically for natural hazards. So we want to make sure that the project that you guys are working on is mitigating the risk for a natural hazard, figuring out what the damages have been or could be for the impacts of these hazards on the community to make sure that we have a good sense of what it is we're actually truly mitigating, and understanding the quantitative and qualitative losses as well, that all contribute to our benefit cost analysis that's required by FEMA. And then we try to predict, based on some of our research and some of our different tools, what potential future conditions might contribute to our project, contribute to that hazard impact on the community, and how is climate change worsening the problem? A lot of our communities are facing the real threats of climate change, which is seeing these increase in intensity of disasters and frequency of disasters. And so we want to understand how those impacts are going to continue to worsen the problem for the community and incorporate those risks into the benefit cost analysis. For potential projects and solutions, we look at a lot of our tools and existing planning resources that are put in place, including the hazard mitigation plans, planning studies, feasibility studies, capital improvement projects, plans, new requirements for budgetary needs, comprehensive stakeholder engagement. We do a pretty comprehensive workup and trying to identify potential solutions and potential project ideas that would be best suited for your community. And if you don't know what solution, but you know what your problem is, we'll work with you on formulating an advanced assistance project to help you guys scope out what the best course of action would be for your community. And then we identify what the potential challenges might be, whether there's a low level of capacity within the community, or whether there's an inability to find additional funding for the 25% cost share match. We try to assess what additional support may be required of the community and whether or not they're going to be able to implement that grant once it's awarded and received. And our technical assistance team is there to support, right? We're here to support and identify opportunities for project implementation. We want to make sure that you guys are finding the right resources for your community and not putting you guys in a situation where you're being set up for failure. So we want to make sure you have what you need to be able to submit a sub-application that's going to be successful for a project that's going to be benefiting the community. And there's certain requirements that are necessary for every sub-application. We want to make sure it's a detailed scope of work. The more information, the better. We want to make sure that the cost estimate and the narrative really describes the anticipated cost of these projects. We want to stay away from anything that's too generic or too general, and give a pretty good workup and idea of what we anticipate we're going to be using these funds for. We want to have pretty solid data collection for cost effectiveness, and we have to submit a FEMA credible benefit cost analysis for every sub-application. And some of those requirements are currently changing. So I think right now for any project that's under $1 million, there's not going to be a FEMA requirement to submit a BCA, but there's going to be a requirement from us here at Cal OES to make sure that we're submitting a cost-effective project. So we'll still probably go through the motions of creating a benefit cost analysis, even if we're not necessarily going to be required by FEMA to meet that 1.0 benefit cost ratio. And just a little bit about our resilience branch and the technical assistance division specifically. So this division is incredibly new. We are hiring actively. We have about 20 plus staff that are going to be supporting this technical assistance division. We've hired 13 so far and are actively working on hiring the remaining staff. It's comprised of 3 separate units, one that's focusing on climate and flooding resilience, one that's focusing on wildfire resilience, and the other is focusing on infrastructure resilience. So we're trying to make sure that we're focusing on how can we actually create a comprehensive strategic approach for resilience around all of these hazards and potential projects for the entire state, and then truly being intentional about what types of projects we're selecting to support that strategic approach to make our communities more resilient. And we're trying to align those with our plans, our hazard mitigation, local hazard mitigation plans. And each of those plans is identified mitigation actions where you could potentially reduce the risk of those mitigation hazards. We want to align those actions with potential projects. So be pretty intentional about showing where we anticipate potential risks on the community, and then actually showing where we're developing projects that align to those mitigation actions. And that's about it. So if you guys have any questions about our programs, please feel free to reach out to us at our hma@caloes.ca.gov. That's our general inquiry inbox. We have somebody monitoring that inbox at all times to be able to answer your questions pretty promptly. And feel free to reach out or just check out our website as well. We will be making some changes to make it a little bit more easy to navigate. But for the time being, all of the information on all of our programs is on our website. So feel free to check that out. And scan the QR code here as well to sign up for any updates on programs, webinars, and funding opportunities. And we send that out to our entire listserv. And that's all I've got. If any questions, I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you all. Thanks.
Thank you, Melissa. I appreciate the information. Again, I always encourage everyone to visit the breakout rooms, because that's where you can really ask more questions and talk directly to the representatives about your own community. So our next speaker is also from the governor's Office of Planning and Research. Brandon will be giving us some more information about what they have at their agency.
Great, thank you. Good morning. Hopefully everyone can hear me all right.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. And then hopefully you can see my slides.
Yes, we can. They're small, but maybe it's just my screen.
Okay, let me see what I can do here. Let's try it on this screen. I think I have a pretty wide screen, so that's why
Okay.
they're
Oh,
It's showing
okay.
up that way. All right. Is that any better?
It hasn't popped up yet. Oh, yes, much better. Thank you.
Okay, great. So I can go ahead and let me try to navigate this screen out of the way. Okay, there we are. So, yep, my name is Brandon Harrell. I am a senior planner here at on the ICARP team at the Office of Planning and Research. Before I dig into the ICARP grant programs, just love to give you a brief overview of what ICARP is, who we are. OPR's ICARP program, it stands for the Integrated Climate Adaptation and Resiliency Program. We were created by state law in 2015 to coordinate the state's response to climate impacts across state agencies and also across levels of governance, including federal programs. And we exist to support local planning and implementation of climate adaptation and resilience programs. Our program supports this charge through provision of tools and technical assistance. We have a public council, technical advisory council, and a state level climate assessment, which we're currently working on. It's called the fifth assessment, and 3 investment programs, which I will talk about today. Oh, looks like that slide didn't move. Well, that was the slide I was just describing. I'll move to the next slide. So OPR has 3 new grant programs. And we've developed them all within the last year as authorized through the 2021 state climate budget. These grant programs fund tribal, local, and regional climate adaptation and resilience efforts across the state. The Adaptation Planning Grant Program, the Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Grant Program, and the Regional Resilience Grant Program. And each of these programs operates within ICARP. So the first program I'll describe is the Regional Resilience Grant Program. This program supports local, regional, and tribal entities to engage in and implement regional scale climate resilience solutions. Last month, the program announced awards. Actually, this was about 3 months now. These slides are a little bit old. Announced awards for 10 planning and 6 implementation projects, which totaled $21.7 million. And those awards will go on to support 16 new regional partnerships, uniting public entities, California Native American tribes, CBOs or community-based organizations, and academic institutions. The Regional Resilience Grant Program focuses on regional partnerships and projects that are aligned with ICARP priorities to reduce climate risks. The program also aims to address the greatest climate risks in each region with a strong emphasis on supporting vulnerable communities. The program focuses on addressing a range of climate-related challenges, including wildfires, rising sea levels, droughts, floods, extreme heat events, and several other risks beyond that. Kind of keep the short list. Another goal of this program is to fill the funding gaps in climate resilience funding and to support sustainable and cohesive climate resilience projects. also aiming to support equitable outcomes. And you'll kind of see that theme throughout our grant programs is a huge focus on vulnerable communities and delivering equitable outcomes. This is some of the nuances of the set-asides for that program. I'll kind of skip it in the interest of time. The regional resilience program awarded projects that they identified to be the highest risk and highest priority for climate risks in their region. 9 of those projects addressed multiple climate risks, 4 addressed wildfire specifically, and 1 addressed sea level rise, extreme heat, and drought. More of this information can be found on our website. Again, I won't go too deep into the details there, but I'll be dropping a link to the website here in the chat after the presentation, and really happy to discuss these in the breakouts. The Adaptation Planning Grant Program, which I work on most closely, leverages $25 million over 3 rounds to support local, regional, and tribal communities. But with the budget revise, it may be that we're just doing 2 rounds instead of 3, unfortunately. So this number is likely to change. But we're still moving full steam ahead with round 2, and the application window for round 2 closes next week, next Wednesday at midnight. So this is the one that you'll really want to be paying attention to. We're focusing on integrated climate adaptation planning specifically, so no implementation dollars in this program. And we do this through not only facilitating climate adaptation planning, but also helping folks develop their implementation and their plans for like long-term sustainable financing. So we're really encouraging kind of serving as a conduit between federal grant programs and encouraging funding those types of activities. In round 1, we had $8 million available, with awards ranging between $150,000 to $650,000. For round 2, the program or the cycle that we're working on now will have $9.5 million available. And this is a quick look on the right side of our timeline of how round 1 looked. We kicked off engagement and finalized the grant, the guidelines for round 2 in February. And so we've had about a almost 3.5 month application period, and looking forward to reading applications the next couple months. So the goals of the Adaptation Planning Grant Program are to enhance accessibility and diversity by minimizing barriers for applicants. We have technical assistance providers to help vulnerable communities complete their applications and develop competitive applications. And we've also dedicated a lot of time and energy into thinking through how we reach different communities, both geographic diversity through economic diversities, and then focusing on other vulnerable communities through partners in our networks. Prioritizing vulnerable communities, as I mentioned, is center for us. It's paramount in our grant development process, and we've done this through prioritizing vulnerable communities, but also including an all-risk approach to adaptation planning. So thinking how we prepare communities for various climate change impacts, not just hard infrastructure, but thinking through the soft infrastructure, the social networks that kind of keep us together and resilient through difficult times. Emphasizing integrated infrastructure planning, so significant focus on social and physical infrastructure, as well as thinking through the other pieces of our communities. So that's transportation planning, economic stability, housing, natural resource management, hazard mitigation, public infrastructure, healthy food access, things like that. So really looking to fund projects that are kind of thinking holistically about their communities and how we develop a climate resilient future. And then also building community capacity for resilience. So capacity is a huge part of what we're thinking of when we're thinking about funding programs and activities that not only look long-term, but how are we kind of developing that short-term, that immediate capacity to be able to engage with long-term solutions. And then prioritizing fair access in our funding. So distributive equity is something that we've really been trying to prioritize, and thinking through what regional diversity of projects looks like. So not just funding projects in Los Angeles County or the Bay Area, but how are we kind of looking into low-income rural communities as well. So some eligible applicant types are local public entities, California Native American tribes, community-based organizations or CBOs, which are not limited to 501c3 nonprofit organizations. This can include non-governmental organizations, philanthropic organizations, foundations, and other organizations that have a history of representing vulnerable communities. There should be a minimum of one co-applicant on every project that comes through, including a main applicant, so a lead applicant and a co-applicant. And we do encourage folks to, of course, bring more folks into their application development process. So seeing diverse and robust partnerships is encouraged, but not necessarily a requirement. And then tribal members, tribal serving organizations do not have the same requirement to have multiple partners. Some examples of eligible activities, we really emphasize planning and the climate adaptation nexus. So anything from identifying climate resilience priorities to developing vulnerability assessments or planning for climate resilient infrastructure, all the way to increasing access to federal funding. So developing applications for federal programs is also encouraged. And then some examples of ineligible organizations would be for-profit entities or other state agencies. And then ineligible activities would be the implementation of construction projects, for example, or CEQA and NEPA activities. Here are some examples of our round one grantees. So the Yosemite Slough Adaptation Plan, the San Mateo One Watershed Climate Resilience Framework, the San Rafael Climate Adaptation Planning Collaborative, and Los Angeles Cool Capital Stack. Of course, more information available on our website. We do deep spotlight profiles for each of these projects. So like I mentioned, we're closing out our application process now for APGP, and we'll be announcing awards in the late summer, most likely. And then last but not least, our Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Grant Program. This program will fund planning and implementation projects to reduce the impacts of extreme heat and build community resilience. So the program will, through funding projects across the state, hopefully the intention is to build out our adaptation clearinghouse here at ICARP to really sort of exemplify and develop robust frameworks for change, and how extreme heat projects, how we can invest in local, regional, and tribal projects to sort of develop some case studies for how we can advance extreme heat adaptation work in the future. The EHCRP program, which is the acronym for extreme heat, is also going to look holistically at job creation, placemaking, placekeeping, and protecting the health of Californians who are most vulnerable to extreme heat. This program will fund $118 million in planning and implementation to extreme heat. So it's by far sort of our largest grant program. The goals of the Extreme Heat and Community Resilience Program are equity, so explicitly and meaningfully prioritizing equitable outcomes, coordination, so coordinating the state's efforts to address extreme heat in the urban heat island effect and provide financial and technical assistance to eligible entities, planning, so encouraging communities to equitably plan for extreme heat events by centering the needs of vulnerable communities, and then state capacity, so building state capacity to plan for and implement equitable planning strategies. Oops, forgot to click that one. And very similar to the Adaptation Planning Grant Program, the eligible and ineligible applicants are identical, but the planning, the eligible activities differ quite a bit. So the extreme heat program is thinking of eligible activities in 4 distinct grant types. So there's small planning grants, large planning grants, small implementation grants, and large implementation grants. The small planning grants are available to communities that want to develop partnerships to advance response efforts to extreme heat and or to build long-term resilience to extreme heat. The large planning grants are meant to build community-wide programs and or infrastructure. And then the small implementation grants fund single site or technology projects. And then conversely, the large implementation grants fund projects that combine multiple infrastructure solutions or locations. And that's it. I'll go ahead and drop a link to our website in the chat and appreciate your time.
Thank you for that information. We appreciate it. We have one more speaker from Gabriel Edwards. He's from the Department of Water Resources. But and right after his presentation, we're going to put the link to the online survey for you guys to take to let us know how we did today at our funding fair. So let me stop talking and let Gabe talk.
Hi, everyone. Can I get a quick mic check? Sound okay?
Yes, you do. We can see your
Perfect.
presentation. Yes.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. As Sosa said, my name is Gabriel Edwards. I'm a senior environmental scientist at the Department of Water Resources. And today I'm just going to give a brief overview of our current and upcoming funding programs. Emphasis on brief. We don't have a lot open right now. And I know we've got breakout rooms after this, so I want to save some time for that. So let's get started. So before I get into specifics, I just want to quickly touch on DWR funding eligibility. So generally, our grant applicants must be tribal governments, nonprofits, or public or local agencies. And then this is a list of examples for public and local agencies. You know, you've got state agencies, cities, counties, mutual water companies, et cetera. The main thing that I want to note is usually we do not have funding for private landowners or private individuals, just generally for our funding programs. If you are interested in any of our funding programs, I highly recommend checking the funding program guidelines to see if you're eligible, or you can always contact the program directly to confirm eligibility. So the best resource for applying to DWR funding programs is our Grants and Loans website. It looks like this, as you can see on the right. This lists our active funding programs right here, and it has links to funding resources, such as the specific DWR funding program websites, and also links to the California Grants Portal. Both the California Grants Portal and the funding program websites have application submittal, eligibility, and contact info. And again, you can always contact a funding program directly to learn more about how to apply. This is a list of our current and upcoming funding programs that I'll be covering today. As I mentioned, we're a little sparse right now. So the first one up is the Riverine Stewardship Program. This program supports fish passage and ecological improvements for streams. There's 6.48 million available, and applications for this one are going to be accepted until all the funds have been expended. Eligible applicants include tribes, local public agencies, and certified nonprofits. And this program has a pretty limited geographic scope. So it's limited to counties within the Association of Bay Area Governments, which you can see on the map here. It's this cross-hatched area in black. Projects for this program must support habitat restoration and green infrastructure designs and solutions that improve water quality and supply. And projects also must be consistent with Water Code Section 79205.6. So I've got a few examples here. You've got habitat restoration and improvement efforts like gravel injection projects, fish passage solutions that remove barriers to fish migration or just otherwise improve fish passage, and improvements within riverine habitats. Next up is the Dam Safety and Climate Resilience Local Assistance Program. This program provides funding for repairs, rehab, enhancements, and other dam safety projects at existing state jurisdictional dams and associated facilities. Dams and facilities must have been in service prior to January 1st, 2023 in order to be eligible. So prior to January 1st of last year. And some example projects include new spillway and spillway repair projects, dam seismic retrofit projects and projects to remove sediment and sediment from like wildfires or extraordinary storm events. And there's a few other example type projects that can fit into this program. There's 47.5 million available. This program is going to open this June and it's going to close this July. And it's eligible to entities that own a state jurisdictional dam and associated facilities. So for this one, eligible applicants include businesses and individuals, nonprofits, public agencies, and other legal entities. And then finally, we have the Water Desalination Grant Program. So this program funds planning, design, and construction of projects to desalinate naturally occurring brackish and ocean water for potable water supply. The focus of this program is on the development of potable water for municipal uses. There's 1 million available with a 50-50 cost share requirement. This program opens on September 18th of this year, and it closes on September 19th at 5 p.m. And eligible applicants include public agencies, nonprofit organizations, tribes, investor-owned utilities, and mutual water companies. And then because our funding programs are always subject to change, please check either the DWR grants and loans page I showed earlier or the California grants portal that Shivani gave a presentation on earlier, because those two places will give you up-to-date information about our funding programs. And for the California grants portal, you can always filter the results for DWR funding opportunities, and that will give you a list of DWR grants, including the ones we talked about today. So for example, if you go there today, you will only see the Riverine Stewardship Program because that's our only active funding program at the moment. I do want to mention one other program I haven't talked about today. This is specifically for small communities that are facing drought-related impacts. If you are in that group, please reach out to our Small Community Drought Relief Program. It's smallcommunitydrought@water.ca.gov, or feel free to ask me about this in the DWR breakout room because it's kind of a unique situation. And then we have lots of additional resources and info on our website. There's links to those resources in the DWR slides that are on the CFCC website, along with like all the presentations from today. If you have questions about DWR funding, please email funding@water.ca.gov, or feel free to reach out to me or to Leslie Pierce at DWR, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you have about our funding programs. So that's the end of my presentation, and I look forward to speaking with some of you in our breakout room at the end of the funding fair. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Gabe. We appreciate that. So right now, we're going to put the link to the online evaluation form. We appreciate if you guys would take the time to take the survey. And right now, I'm going to be opening up the breakout rooms so that our presenters could go and set up to start receiving some of the applicants. I mean, some of the attendees today. The breakout rooms should all be open. And while they're in there setting up to receive you, if you can take the survey, we really appreciate it. I will be here in the main room, so if anyone has problems going in and out, just let me know and we can help you get in and out. And if you go to the online survey, you can always jump back to this survey. I mean, come back to the Zoom meeting. And thank you for that, Gabe. The survey does help us improve the funding fairs, and we have made some improvements from previous surveys that that participants and attendees have suggested. If you're having problems finding the breakout rooms, if you are in full screen, there'll be 4 boxes at the bottom of your screen. Then you click on that and then you can join any room. But if you're on, speaker view or something like that, you will have to click the more button. And the very first button on the more button says breakout rooms. And you click there and then you can enter all the breakout rooms that way as well.
I assume we're all good to go. All right, we're all good to go.